My name is Simranpreet Singh, and I'm going to be interviewing Ulises Karate, who is an engineering student at SJSU. Um,
Hello, thank you for having me.
okay, so let's get right into this. I'm assuming as an engineering student that you are pretty well knowledge on algorithms. Would you say that's true?
I would say so. I've had enough exposure from electrical engineering major at San Jose State to have a well-rounded background knowledge of
Okay, and
computers.
would you say that work directly with them?
Yes, we
Okay.
would put together codes for different certain complexities of projects.
Okay, can you give me an example of a project?
Yeah, like we would it started off with simple like receiving certain basic arithmetic outputs from codes to putting together a board where we would toggle lights based on a program we put together to starting to put together a motherboard of a computer. So
Okay, so that's a lot of exposure.
Mhm.
And given all that exposure and seeing that you guys worked with them and how hands-on it is that your presence is for the codes to even work, do you think that there's possibility for bias even in a classroom setting?
I can see a small, I don't know about small, but I can see a disadvantage in classrooms. Those students that are more exposed to this material could put together a code, where they overachieve and they don't just make the lights toggle, but they make them dance in a certain pattern. Where those that are not as exposed and may have certain disadvantages because in the major, like programs are expensive
Wow.
and working with school hours could be different, and I can see how like comparing this to a ratio of like I'm not an expert in this, but maybe like in a like maybe in a country scale, where like those companies in certain areas in the country could get more funding, so then those areas can put together codes for their population where they're more technologically advanced.
Yeah.
Where like in other areas where they are less fortunate and less funding, maybe they can put together the codes that are only up to their
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, I think in the bigger scale it would all depend on funding and
there's so many factors to look into it that partake in the functioning of an algorithm.
correct,
It's
and a
not just black.
company.
Since we let's move on to the next question. Since given your exposure and given that you've created algorithms yourself, um, what do you think of their place in society and what do you think of their influence?
I think that algorithms are fundamental to life as we know it now.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful merge, you could say, between technology and society, where like um, we are able to benefit from it, like from everything from your alarm clock to like circuitry and your toaster. And of course those are not like as complex as like artificial learning, which is what you're touching up on, but like that's just in your near like around you. But thinking of it bigger scale, of course it plays into like what your ads you're watching or are being offered to you, what you're purchasing. We're all in the technological under the technological scope, and.
Yeah, so technology is really, these algorithms are fundamental. Um, but given that that they are so fundamental for our society, and since you had exposure with them, I want to know what you think about consequences. Do you think there could be any consequences from these algorithms for people? Like, as in, like, yes, there's good that comes from it, but what's the other side?
Oh, the other side, I think it's a little scary because it's so advanced in technology. Everybody has a fear that technology is going to take over in forms of like robots, and that goes into the machine learning because it gets smarter after the last output it just sent out. So it's like learning, and these
I agree with.
where the output is being received at a minuscule fraction of the second. So if the answers are coming that fast, it's essentially learning in seconds. You know, what as like humanity we couldn't learn in years. You know, and it's all from how smart and how great we have put together these codes and the complexity of our understanding and our progressiveness in this, like, I guess, humanity, you could say. But yeah, it could be scary, but I think it's
for that insight. Now I'd like to emerge into the question of, well, for our research, we found a lot of examples and means of how algorithms impact society at a social level. But what are some interesting ways that you see it affecting society?
I've heard about China implementing face recognition for what they would call like a point system, which is like essentially a credit score per person. So you're casually just walking to work, right? But then there are cameras that are watching you throughout the streets and recognizing your face and watching you throughout, so that if you maybe litter or assault someone, you would get a point off of yourself. And although that sounds very futuristic, it's happening. I think they've even started monitoring in their subways. Don't quote me. I would like to look more into it. But last I heard, they were implementing these softwares, these algorithms, this technology exists, and it's just scary to know that you're being watched all the time, and you're being put to appear as a certain image of what their government wants you to be. Like, you don't litter. Of course, those are obvious. Like, you should not litter. You should not hit anyone. That's obvious. But where do they draw the line? Where does the government say we're only watching for this and not for you? Where you're going. And although people have different lives, and they might like not have any malice against the country, but why does the country need to watch you? Like the government, excuse me. But I think that's a very like very different implementation of computer learning and processing your face, and running it through these codes where you're just a number under the whatever higher government you're under. And it's just this is where the ethics and technology and our history and our future all merge together. And we should obviously I like the fact that we are exploring these topics. And
thank you, insight. And I think that brings us to just a really important and main topic of my group's research, and that is that these algorithms are very progressive, yes, and they're used for so many futuristic means, but what is behind the scenes? What is going on, within these codes? It's not as black and white as we have these algorithms and society functions perfectly. We continue to see injustices, and they continue to be perpetuated at the hands of these algorithms. Would you agree?
I would say yes, 100%. I think with the fast progressing technology, we should also progress as our morals and values as humanity, and just implement it where it truly is benefiting all. And
yes, I agree. That's a really good way to put it. It's not just a technological progression that we need to have. It's a mindful and a mindset type of progression we need to have, because I believe that given the impact of these algorithms, and given that you told me through your EE experience that you guys were so hands-on, put that into perspective of our laptops, our phones, our credit cards, our credit scores. There are legitimate people behind the functioning of these services. So obviously, in some way or another, some sort of discrepancy or disparity is going to come. And at the end of the day, I believe that these disparities, though they seem minor, add up to a much bigger issue that we will see, maybe not now, but you will continue to see as society progresses.
I think it's very important we address these issues and these flaws in our codes and our algorithms now, before they become so hidden and out of reach of people.
Yes.
Finding them and calling them out, because that's how we're gonna get change, I believe, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's through the people. Yeah, but
correct.
if we don't start now, there will be a point where it's just
It's
no.
just code,
Yeah,
and it
and those
was
codes are going to continue learning from their own biases, and it's just going to
yes,
continue to become
not progressive,
yeah,
right? We just plateau.
yeah. Okay, well, I think that concludes the questions. Thank you so much for your time, and I really enjoyed the insight. Thank you so much.